We are here in our podcast in general talking about how to connect and help your kids through big emotions, but that does not mean that there are no consequences for bad behavior.
This moment is important.
Yes.
Just let it all go and just be there for this child right now.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Lulubug's podcast for parents, where we empower you with the tools to help children become confident, resilient, and ready for life's adventures. Hosted by creator of Lulubug's Garden, Jil Hunter, and child psychiatrist, Dr. Karen Menotis.
Hello again. Here we are for our new podcast, the Lulubug's podcast for parents. And today we are talking about the emotion of disappointment. And
Yes.
I'm excited you're here.
Thanks. I'm so excited to chat a little bit about what this can look like in young kids and maybe dispel some myths of what the behavior might look like and what's really going on in the brain. And in fact, we do have a Lulubug's Garden episode on disappointment. Can you tell us a little bit about what happens in the show so that if parents are listening and they maybe want their kids to watch the episode, it's a good place to lay the groundwork?
It's a great one. So Lulu in this episode is so excited to go acorn bowling. She is a professional acorn bowler and loves it and invites the twins into the garden to participate. But as they're starting the game, the acorn bowling ball gets actually taken away by a bird.
Oh, no.
And the acorn bowling ball, her day is ruined. She's very disappointed. It's not going the way she wanted it to go.
Oh, I'm sure she was just crushed in that moment.
Crushed in the moment. So her friends help her through, and we're learning a lot of things in the episodes, how to deal with disappointment.
Yeah, that's a great place to lay the groundwork for young kids to sort of start the conversation with them. And maybe hopefully through the episode today, parents kind of know where to go to navigate this conversation with them.
Yes, in fact, really, parents out there, use our episodes to start conversations with your children while they're not in that emotion in that moment, to really practice it with them. So when those emotions do come up, that they already have certain tools and skills that you talk to them about.
You know, that deflated feeling of when you're so excited and anticipating something and then you just have like a door slam in your face.
And it just doesn't go the way you were expecting it to go.
Right. Especially for young kids. Their emotions feel very, very big. It's like a whole body effect. So helping them and also parents through understanding what that feels like and understanding what it is and where that's coming from, but then also what to do with that to use it as a growth moment is so valuable.
So it does seem, especially in young children, you actually work through with them through the feeling of disappointment quite often. Like even sometimes you just, in their mind, you should have poured the cereal a certain way or should have helped them put on the shoe a different way. Or I mean, there's so many little things that I can't even come up with maybe in this moment. But like,
yes, like my own son, I don't know how many times he's had a meltdown over the fact that I cut his bananas instead of letting him eat it whole. Now I have to warn my husband, like, do not cut the banana.
There will be disappointment.
They will be disappointed. But it's so real. And I think for parents, at least, it's really hard because it seems like such insignificant events that trigger kids to either have a tantrum or become upset and disappointed, or, you know, it can look so many different ways or act out that it's like, it almost makes you question, like, am I parenting them correctly? And so I
like how you just said insignificant events, because often it does seem like that to us. We're like, this is not that big of a deal. But to them, it really, really is. And the emotion is as real as can be. And it's a big emotion to them.
The reason for that is kids just don't have the ability to rationalize like adults do, because that prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain that's in charge of rationalizing and saying, well, you know, the banana is going to taste the same whether it's cut or not. Like, it's just not available to them like it is to us. And so it's harder. And there's a biological reason for that.
How could parents react to it? Or maybe what's the best way to react to it? Because I think sometimes you just want to say, it's just not a big deal. Just eat it the way it is.
Mm-hmm. It's really common not only for parents and caregivers to feel just frustrated, like, oh my goodness, your popsicle broke, but you still have the whole popsicle. Like, just eat it. Or want to rush in and fix it and get a new popsicle that's not broken, or want to like provide silver linings like, hey, at least you have a popsicle. Like some people don't even have a popsicle. And so like those are all things that are really common. And I have to admit, I do it myself sometimes and I have to catch myself. But they almost like invalidate the feeling of disappointment and sadness that kids are experiencing in the moment that is very real.
And so what it really tells them, if you react like that, is you shouldn't be having this feeling.
Exactly. And we really want to teach kids that every feeling is okay to have, and that every feeling and emotion is valid to that person and to that child, and that you're going to be there for them regardless, right? Now, and we'll talk about this too, but that does not excuse the behavior. And so we will get to that part.
We'll get to that part.
Yes.
But let's maybe first start with what's the brain science behind this? What happens in the brain during that emotion of disappointment?
Yes. So let's talk about that, because I think it helps maybe conceptualize what's going on that causes sort of these really big outward expression of disappointment in young kids. And so to like understand why your child explodes over a broken banana or a broken popsicle or a rainy day that just like ruined their baseball game.
Or their acorn gets taken away by a bird.
Yes, exactly. We really have to look at what's happening in the brain. So that like dramatic like meltdown tantrum is really just a predictable biologic response. So it really helps us as parents and as caregivers for kids, if we can remind ourselves of what's going on in the brain. It helps us, I think, respond in a way that's less reactive and more understanding and empathetic of like, oh, this isn't something you're intentionally doing to get what you want. Necessarily, it's really like a chemical storm in your brain that you're trying to manage as a young child. And so what happens in the brain is whenever there is anticipation or excitement, right? Let's say a kid was really excited to go to the store and get a popsicle or go play baseball at the field. There's like steady bursts of dopamine that is released in the brain. It's involved in different functions, but one of the things it's involved in is the reward system in the brain, where it's like the feel good, the I did it chemical, but then also like the reward response to when you do something good or when you win a prize or when you're excited about something. And so you have small amounts of that is released. And if you think about it, kind of gradually goes up until the anticipated outcome happens, whatever that is. And so when the anticipated outcome doesn't happen, it activates something called a negative reward prediction error. What it means is like what they expected was going to happen doesn't happen, and it causes like a significant plummet in dopamine levels. So even below baseline. So it basically like just fully depletes that dopamine that has been building up in anticipation of a reward, interpreted by the brain as emotional pain and can sometimes cross over with physical pain. So that's why sometimes kids feel it so strongly in the body as well. They're overlapping systems, and activates the amygdala, which is the brain's alarm system. And that's when we see the sort of fight or flight, meltdown behavior.
So what are often things physically that we can see in these younger children when they are feeling disappointment?
Most of the time, we tend to see sort of this tantrum-looking, right, responses, outward behaviors. It can be sort of exploding over a completely unrelated minor issue. Maybe if they were disappointed earlier in the day and then, you gave them the wrong colored cup or something.
Oh, yes. Kind of forgot about those.
Yep. Or, a slightly torn sticker or something that seems so minor.
Yes.
But that's because their system's already been primed by an earlier sort of letdown. And so, again, they're more easily sort of let down, right, in that moment. It can also look like, rejection of alternatives. So screaming like, I don't want a cookie instead. Let's say you offer them a cookie because their popsicle broke, and I want that specific popsicle. And even if it's the same flavor, like it's not the same one.
Yes.
Does that sound familiar?
Oh, yes, it does.
So it tends to look outwardly like a behavioral problem, right?
Yeah.
Like a behavioral response. And that's because that's that amygdala, that fight or flight response system that's basically telling them like danger, right? That's what your amygdala is there for. It's to protect you. And so any form of pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, can activate the amygdala, and then the amygdala sort of responds in a way that is big, right? It's trying to protect you. And so in some kids, you might see it more of sort of a deflated look, some like, right, that flight. So we think fight is like outward behaviors and the meltdowns, the tantrums, and then flight, you think more like just withdrawal, want to be alone. And so that can also
It's
be
more the shutting off.
Exactly, the shutting down piece. And so those two are the main reasons we tend to see disappointment come through. But I think that it's easier to identify a child feeling disappointed when they are withdrawing or shutting down or look deflated, whereas when we see kids sort of throwing a tantrum or a meltdown or having more of those outward responses, it's harder to identify like, oh, that's actually disappointment. Yeah. And so that's why I bring that up.
So I think it's harder to identify, and I think it's harder for the parents to know what do I do out of this moment? Should I tell my kid just don't be like this or don't act like this? Just as you already said before, just take this popsicle instead. Yes. It tastes just the same. Right. Or like, what is your advice to parents how to react to this disappointment behavior?
Well, I mean, I think I'm going to ask you, like, how many times has it worked when we've tried to tell, young kids in the moment of, well, just, this popsicle tastes exactly the same. Like, I don't know that anyone I know or any of the people, the young kids I've talked to that would have worked with. And again, that's because of that prefrontal cortex. They not only are they emotionally flooded and really can't have a harder time accessing the prefrontal cortex, but it's also really underdeveloped. So they cannot rationalize and use logic in that moment of saying, you're right, it is the same popsicle. It's going to taste delicious anyway.
Yeah, and it almost in the moment feels sometimes like you're just putting gas on the fire. It actually makes it worse.
Right.
Instead of, those moments when you can more maybe validate the emotions.
It sometimes can like bring a sense of like panic or like urgency to parents of needing to rush in and fix it for them, just to make the crying stop or make the screaming stop or whatever it is that's happening, right? Or just to make them feel better. Which
you want to come straight to the rescue.
Right.
Like, do not feel this feeling.
Right.
It doesn't seem like a feeling you should be having.
Right. So my son is very into baseball right now. Every season is a different phase of sports of some sort. He's 4. And the other day we were actually driving. We got him all ready. He had his baseball uniform on. He had like shined his mitt. He got his favorite ball. And he was like, Mom, me and you were going to play baseball on the real field with the dirt, right? And I promised him we would. And we drove all the way to the special park that he loved because it had the real bases with the brown dirt, just like a real baseball field. And we drove over there, and I kid you not, Jill, we park the car, get out, and there is a downpour of rain.
So exactly.
You should have seen his face. Like, he actually went more into the shutting down. He just, like, you could see there was like a tear coming down one of his cheeks, and he was just looking down and so deflated, and it broke my heart. And I was so close to driving across town just to find a dry field for him. And I stopped myself because it's really not what's best for him. I needed to let him sit in the disappointment and get through that with me, right? Rather than go in and fix it. But it was so tempting. And I can see like how difficult it can be to just let your kids sit in hard feelings, especially one like disappointment. It's so important that we let our kids sit in disappointment and learn how to get through it without them crumbling over it.
Yeah.
Because it is one of the things that contributes to building emotional resilience in kids' development over time to become more resilient for when they have bigger disappointments down the road, right? Whether they're in their adolescent years or their adulthood where the stakes are higher and we are inevitably going to have more and more moments of disappointment. And so having that emotional resilience by building some of these tools and supporting our kids through these moments by allowing them to feel it, go through it, rather than take that opportunity away inadvertently, right?
Yeah.
By saving them or by fixing it really quickly, is so valuable. And so that's why I didn't take him to the dry field.
And by letting them sit in the disappointment, I know that you're not meaning letting them be alone in that moment either. Because that is not what we're encouraging you to do, like just letting them be alone with that emotion. We're helping them still, but just in a different way, not fixing it or taking it away.
Right, exactly. So let's talk a little bit more about specifically, like what's the best way to handle it in the moment and what helps the most to sort of build some of these skills that contribute to emotional resilience down the line. Pause and put a break, right? And check in with yourself as a parent. So take a slow breath and repeat this in your head that this is a chemical storm in my child's brain and not a reflection of my parenting. This, again, like I mentioned earlier, can bring a sense of empathy to the situation. It's sometimes hard to see through like the behavioral outbursts or just not understanding kind of why your kids are responding in a way that seems to be over something so minor. And so just that's like step one, right? Regulate yourself because you're 100% going to be bringing that to your child, whatever it is that you're carrying with you. Then the next step is really to narrate the experience for your child. So narrate specifically what the underlying desire under the disappointment is. So, for example, saying things like, your heart really, really wanted that baseball field today. Or you were thinking about that popsicle the whole way home. And that's really disappointing that, X, Y, or Z, right? Acknowledge what they wanted without offering a solution. That's the key. So you can narrate their experience and narrate for them so that they can also identify like, oh my goodness, what is this big feeling I'm feeling and why? Sometimes, again, they can't really access that thinking part of the brain as well. Narrating it for them can bring the thinking part of the brain back on. And so that's sort of where you start.
So you're validating it, but not fixing.
You're labeling it, validating it, but not fixing it. Exactly. And then, like I said, and this is probably the hardest part, sit in it with them, right? So we're not abandoning them in their emotion, but we're allowing them to feel it and to go through it with us next to them. And like label that heavy weight. So say something like, hey, the big disappointment feeling is here. It feels so heavy in your tummy. I'm right here with you. And that feeling of like not being alone and knowing that someone understands you releases oxytocin, which is the brain's connection chemical. And that also really signals safety to a child. So that's really a crucial step. And if they cry, which many kids will be crying, let them cry. Try not to distract them or move them onto the next thing until that crying chemical wave sort of peaks and passes, usually 10 to 15 minutes, I'd say.
Like how you pointed out as a first step to kind of reset ourselves a little, because this sometimes can take a little bit of a time. This is not a quick fix. Not saying that it'll last forever either. But I remember my children definitely feeling if I was just pretending, trying to rush through this, or if I really did settle down, sat there with them, really was just their safety person in that moment and really being there with them.
Yes.
And you can almost feel that exchange with each other, that you're carrying each other.
In practice, I think it can be really hard because like we've got places to go, things to do, like the world keeps going on and then all of a sudden this broken banana just ruined our entire afternoon, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, but it takes me back to lots of times of just saying, you know what, Jill, this is all not that important. This moment is important.
Yes.
Just let it all go and just be there for this child right now. So if you can, take your time.
Yes. And sometimes that means dividing and conquering, right? If you've got multiple kids and you guys are at a game, a baseball game or something with your significant other, maybe, that's kind of a moment where you're like, I'm going to stay behind. And then maybe if you have help, allowing to sort of divide and take that time, or the other parent does it a different day. And that's okay too, right?
Yeah. And I would say too, that it never seemed like a good idea to use this moment while they're calming down and healing, to use it as a preaching moment, which I think sometimes you almost go like, okay, I mean, we talked about that a little bit already.
Yes. And it can actually make things worse, right?
Yes.
I've definitely experienced this, but even when you think about the fact that they can't access the thinking part of their brain, so you trying to teach them in that moment, not only are they not absorbing any of it, but it's almost like just like aggressive noise to them.
Yeah.
So it just feels like too much, like almost in that moment.
Yeah. And then it seems once they hit this calm moment, and you can tell, you can read it in that moment. You're like, they're there. They've
Yes.
calmed them down. And then there's almost a little bit of, not awkwardness, that's maybe not the right word, but there's like, what's the next step?
Yes.
How do we now?
Like, what do we do now, right? Once they've calmed down and you can see that they're sort of back, right? Their thinking brain is now more able to maybe access some logic. That's the right time to talk to them. And I would also say it's best to save any type of correction over behaviors, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, for later, right?
Okay.
Let's see how we can fix, we as in you as the caregiver, guide the child so that they feel like they're fixing it, right? Not fix it for them. And then maybe at bedtime, have that conversation. And then maybe there is a natural consequence associated with it. So that's one thing I really want to stress to parents, right? We are here in our podcast in general talking about how to connect and help your kids through big emotions, but that does not mean that there are no consequences for bad behavior. Consequences are just a natural part of what happens in life, even for adults. After we speed, we get a speeding ticket.
Yeah. And it's a good lesson to learn as a child.
Right. What do we do after they stop crying, right? We want to introduce sort of a collaborative backup plan. So that does not mean fixing it, right, for them. So a collaborative background plan means you're working with your child, you're talking with your child together to come up with an alternative solution to plan A, right? So let's say in my scenario where we were at the baseball field, rather than saying a backup plan of going to another baseball field, that's not what we're doing. As much as I really wanted to. And it ended up raining everywhere. Instead saying, hey, the park is unfortunately rained out, and the big sadness and disappointing feeling is here. When your body feels ready, let's figure out what indoor backup plan is going to be. And so you're not giving in and fixing the situation, but you're giving them space to come up with alternatives that they feel like they have a hand in and also are not necessarily the same as the original plan. So another example maybe would be like for the banana. Let's say it broke. They really want another banana that's unbroken, but you don't have any more bananas. So let's come up with an alternative snack that you can eat that you like. And maybe this time you can tell me whether you want it cut or you want it whole.
Yeah,
rather than going to the store to buy new bananas.
Yeah, and it's probably, exactly. And it's probably so helpful to really have them help you come up with this decision and the plan.
Yes, it gives them a sense of control. Yeah. And a lot of times when kids and when adults even, but really like when kids feel these like really big feelings, they feel out of control, right? And in general, right? Kids don't have a lot of control. We kind of dictate their days, we dictate what they're going to wear, we dictate a lot of things for young children. And so giving them a sense of control really helps bring their buy-in and bring that distress just a little bit lower for them.
Yeah.
And then I would also encourage at that moment, try your best to skip the forced apology. I think a lot of times we tend to say, okay, well, You know that when we get angry or when we get upset or when we get disappointed, it's not okay to throw things. Go say, I'm sorry to your sister for throwing her toy, right? And although that's a really important piece, right, we want them to be able to repair the mistake. That's not quite the right timing. They just got through this emotional wave. They're still trying to like figure out the next step. Again,
It almost seems like you need to be back to your life rhythm. Like kind of just back into where they're feeling I'm doing my normal routine again.
right, or even just sort of on to the next thing. So
the
maybe
next thing, yes.
after they, have their snack that they helped you choose, or after they do an indoor activity with you that you guys came up with together, then they've had some time to use their thinking part of the brain to do that next activity or that next piece, and their distress response is much lower. That would be a good time to say, hey, that was such a fun time playing indoor, even though you were disappointed about the, the park getting rained out. Let's talk a little bit about what kind of things we can and shouldn't do when we're really upset because of how it affects other people. That would be a really good time to talk through some of this and help them repair the situation, whether it's by apologizing or by going to clean up the mess they made or whatever it is.
Do you have suggestions for actually as adults? What's a good way to handle our own disappointments?
Disappointment for adults, I think, looks so different, right, than it does for kids most of the time. Adults aren't throwing themselves on the ground and crying.
Yes.
But it's also, and so because of that, it might be hard for kids to understand that we also have moments when we're feeling disappointed, and that because it's more internal, it's a more internal experience for adults. And so it's really helpful for adults when they are experiencing disappointment to be able to say it out loud and sort of narrate their internal experience out loud. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
So saying something like, man, I'm really disappointed. I didn't get the job I really wanted to that I interviewed for, right? I think dinner table is a great place to have some of these conversations. You're essentially having conversations with your significant other or your other kids, or maybe they're older, right? Include your young kids in that conversation. I mean, obviously, like make it age appropriate. We're not going to be talking about, things that are very sensitive or very hard in a way that's not age appropriate, but just make sure that they're part of the conversation so they can see that, hey, even my parents feel this sometimes, and this is how they handle it. I really encourage that, narrating like, man, I was really disappointed I didn't get that job that I interviewed for. I was so excited about it, and then it just felt like I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And that feeling makes me feel X, Y, and Z way, right?
And then obviously your kids get a little older and the disappointments get different. And
they almost get a little bit harder for parents because they're disappointments that are like, they cut you deep, right? Like they're more like.
And really the hardest thing for me is always when I feel like I am the reason why they're disappointed because I let them down.
Oh, that is so hard.
That's often then the moment where you actually work with yourself to, well, but I couldn't do it different. And you want to that's when I feel like I want to fix it the most, actually. Because I want to kind of almost fix myself while I'm fixing their emotion. But realizing that even in those moments, staying in it and letting it be what it is. This was disappointing, and it did happen this way. And same as in these little kids, to let that emotion really just be, waiting for it to come to a point where it's back to calm, and then re-engaging, and then later on really talking about it. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry this happened or that happened, and then calmly talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness. And this could be a whole nother episode.
Yes.
But just what you brought up about apologizing to your child, like people don't realize like it's so valuable, so valuable for an adult to apologize to a young child. It puts adults in a really vulnerable place, which I think is really good for kids to see, that we are not perfect and that we can make mistakes too, and that we don't get an excuse for bad behavior, right? So we do need to apologize when we're in the wrong. Obviously, that's not always the case, and we're not going to be apologizing for things we didn't do wrong.
Yeah.
But being able to do that is hard and so valuable for kids' development and learning.
When Do you think you should maybe be more worried about the disappointment feeling in your child? That it might be a little more than just that disappointment we just talked about?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, if the behaviors are extreme, right, in those like fight or flight moments or in the behavioral outbursts where it's not just crying or throwing themselves on the ground, but now they're starting to either like hurt themselves or hurt other people or just lasts longer than 15 to 20 minutes at a time, like hours of screaming and crying. That's a big indicator that maybe this is more than your typical disappointment, especially if it's happening like daily, right?
Yeah.
If they can't handle any type of disappointment or change in plans or things not going their way, then I would say that's maybe a time to think about what could also be happening and get some guidance from a professional or your provider.
Yeah. And there could probably be so many reasons for that too. Like even, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is lack of sleep or, missing nap times and those things. But
Yeah. So again, if it's a pattern where it's
Yes.
happening every day and the behaviors are getting more and more extreme, then those two things together would be right. Yeah, definitely. If a child is hungry or doesn't have their their basic needs met because they haven't slept enough, these meltdowns may be longer once in a while, but shouldn't be every day.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Karen. There actually, before we stop, there's actually one more question I do
Yes,
have. Like,
please.
will you explain to me, by handling disappointment this way, the way we just learned from you, how will this help their brain development for their later lives?
Yes. And we touched on it briefly, but it comes down to them building emotional resilience. And so, what is emotional resilience? It's the ability to undergo hard things without falling apart, essentially. You're still able to move on and learn and grow rather than have it sort of stop you in your tracks and take steps backwards, right? So, that is the biggest thing with allowing kids to really sit in these feelings with support, right? And then allowing them to learn how to regulate when those feelings are super big and feel unmanageable.
So I'm going to try in my own words to just summarize how we can support our children with this emotion and jump in if there's a step I'm missing or if we should do it slightly different. Right. But so first really is to try to regulate ourselves, to calm ourselves down, be aware of the situation, know they are needing to borrow our calm.
Right.
Then to name and validate what they're feeling.
Right. And what the underlying desire that they were hoping would happen. Sort of like you're telling a story.
Yes. Yes. And that you validate that would create this big emotion inside of them. And then in the recovery phase, I will let them cry.
Yes.
Let their tears do their jobs.
Yes.
Let them
sit with them. Let them feel and know that they're safe, that you're there with them, but you're not going to fix it.
Yes. So let them sit with it. And then once they're calming down, to talk to them about what could we do now?
Yes.
Like what do we do out of this now?
Right.
Like help me come up with some ideas of how we're handling this
Right.
situation.
What's a plan B that we can do?
Yeah.
Again, not an alternative plan A, but a total plan B.
Yes, and definitely have them help you come up with it. And then after we're like hours later, maybe during bedtime or after, or whenever it is, after the situation has come and gone, to revisit maybe the situation and help them fix what needed fixing. And talk to them about it.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. That's perfect, right? After their thinking brain is back online and they can really listen and absorb and remember that information, it is usually right. Like maybe after that activity or at bedtime, that's the moment where you teach, right? You teach the behaviors that are appropriate and not appropriate, and give natural consequences, right? So And we can again talk a whole episode about consequences.
We probably do need one of those,
Yes,
actually.
yes. But I always encourage natural consequences versus unrelated consequences. So a natural consequence of, for example, if your child, threw their sister's a toy across the room. Well, it seems like you're having a hard time staying safe with your sister's toys when you're, when you're upset, and that makes sense because sometimes we can lose control of our body. However, it's not okay to break things, and so you're going to apologize to your sister, and you're going to have maybe, I don't know, some time away from her toys, right? And so that's a natural consequence because it's related to the behavior that happened, right?
Yeah.
Rather than being like, okay, well, now you're punished for a week. That's not as effective. So we'll talk more about consequences a different time, but that sort of would be the time if you're going to implement a natural consequence to talk about that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I am glad we talked about this today. And I just like that we talk about that all feelings are welcome and all feelings are okay. And they're us. They are who we are. That's what we're feeling.
Yes, because we know that children who are allowed to fully experience disappointment and other big emotions grow into adults who can face failure, they can face loss, they can face unexpected changes without crumbling because they know they can survive a downswing.
Yeah. And, receiving these tools at a young age can be so helpful.
Incredibly.
Throughout your entire life.
Incredibly. So thank you.
And we want to thank Lulubug's Garden, the show itself, and everybody that's part of producing it and making it for the beautiful show, first of all, but also our
merchandise
that we're starting to have. We do have a memory game now that you can find on our website.
So fun.
And a coloring book. And also Karen and I developed these printable activity pages.
Oh my goodness, I am so excited. So this is going to be coming up in the near future, so stay tuned. But this is truly going to be an invaluable resource for parents who want to open the door to these conversations along with the show for their kids, but also reinforce the concepts through activity and through evidence-based methods that are practical, doable, fun. Just so great. So I'm excited for those.
The caregiver and parent with their children.
Yes,
wonderful.
It's going to be such a cool tool. So stay tuned.
Well, thank you so much for watching today. And also follow us and keep watching our Lulubug's Garden episodes, especially this one, the disappointment one. First of all, like and subscribe, but also share this episode with anybody you know that has little children, because we truly believe this is such a valuable, valuable show for little children.
As a prevention mechanism to just grow into emotionally intelligent and resilient adults.
Thank you.